And then hopefully we've got everybody here now. So I'd like to again welcome you all to our 5th AMATYC webinar, which is sponsored by the ITLC. And our speaker today is Bruce Yoshiwara from Pierce College. This is sponsored by AMATYC and is meeting one of our core values, which is part of which is to enhance personal growth of the faculty who are members of the organization. The views expressed by the presenter are not necessarily the views of AMATYC, and commercial products mentioned by the presenter, in this case Wolfram Alpha, which is a commercial product but a free product and available to everybody, so but not endorsed by AMATYC. So the webinar is being sponsored by the Lift Institute at Muskegon Community College, which provides our platform. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, who's going to be sharing his desktop. So I'm going to hide this and turn off my mic, and then it'll be over to Bruce.
Well, actually, Maria, we can start with the very first interaction. My first slide is just the same as you were showing, and I did want to start by having that poll. So everyone, just put in what answer is appropriate for you. And well, sorry, I'm looking at the results everyone else is, and I guess a lot of people have played with and nothing useful. And so far, no one's actually indicating that their students are using it on the exam, which is too bad because I was hoping you were going to tell me how to do that. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to set up so you can see my browser setting. All right. The intention is that I have this sitting on a web browser right now because I do have all of these, not quite slides, but web pages posted online. And at the end of the talk, I'll make sure everyone can find this so that if you wanted to find some particular link that I've shown, you won't have to find the recording and work your way through it. You can just go directly to the spot within the presentation. All right, so most of you know a fair amount about Wolfram Alpha, but I'll talk to this anyway. If you ask it, what are you, the response actually is not, I'm slightly lying here. So what I'm going to do is go to the screen on Wolfram Alpha where I've asked the question. And what shows is not what I originally claimed, but one of the things within Wolfram Alpha is it gives a guess as to what you might have meant. And in this case, I didn't want it to be a single word. I wanted the phrase, "Who are you?" And when I click that I wanted that, it does give the response, "I am a computational knowledge engine." Well, the mission statement is this long bit, which I don't think we want to read particularly carefully, but the idea is it's supposed to do all types of computation that anyone could conceive of. That's the basic notion. And the thing that I find most interesting is that if you were to ask it about the user's manual, the response is that no, there is no need for a manual as such. And there are possibilities, we'll talk about some of them in the next few minutes, about how to find how to do things, but there isn't any user manual available. And Maria, actually, the second interaction, please.
Is that the right one, Bruce?
I'm not seeing anything on my screen. It says select all true statements, but the rest of it looks blank to me. Oh, there, I see it now. Well, I suppose things are still moving around as I'm talking. And, well, I suppose we can be picky about the terminology, but I guess I'll go through each one of these. The first statement that Wolfram Alpha is a search engine like Google or Yahoo. And I would say that the answer is no. It's quite different from search engines which look for essentially static information on the web. And Wolfram Alpha is set up to do calculations on the fly. It just has a whole lot of algorithms for doing interesting computations. And unfortunately, well, whether or not it's fortunate, it's not an online version of Mathematica because there are a whole lot of things Mathematica does which Wolfram Alpha does not. But it certainly is correct that it's basically the engine behind Wolfram Alpha is the Mathematica kernel. And Stephen Wolfram is not a mathematician, he's a physicist, which occasionally might show up in the way Mathematica came to be evolved. And I guess the last part is true. It doesn't require any plugin. Okay, thanks, Maria. Most of you have actually looked at Wolfram Alpha already. And so I'm pretty sure we've got a lot of students that are using it to help with their homework, whether or not the instructor points it out to them. And a lot of us use it to get quick answers when we don't want to pull up something like Mathematica or something else, but we're sitting on the computer already. And I'll try to show a few of the things that people besides mathematicians, and as I pointed out, that was actually created by someone who wasn't a mathematician, what people besides mathematicians do with Wolfram Alpha. Now, I'm not planning to go all the way through the video. I just wanted to point out that if you do follow the links that I'm providing, you get to see Robert Talbert give a very nice little introduction to his calculus students on how to use Wolfram Alpha. And one of the things that people like to highlight about Wolfram Alpha is this step-by-step math. And, well, this is obviously a page from a blog, but it is kind of live. If I wanted to play with this, well, let's point out a couple of things. So if you can read that input, it has solve 3x2 plus x minus 7 equals 4x. And Wolfram Alpha does interpret the 2 immediately after the x as an exponent. You can enter the caret if that pleases you, but you don't have to. When you put a number immediately after a variable, it assumes you wanted an exponent. And well, yeah, let's do this. So the point is that if I wanted to, I could change this some small amount, I don't know. So I altered the input mildly, and then now it solved a different equation. And the show steps bit is there is a button marked show steps. And by their algorithms, quadratic equations are solved by completing the square. And so we can see step by step on how to solve that particular quadratic equation. Now, one of the things I wanted to make sure I got to on this is not the very first example shown, but this one. So in case you can't parse that too quickly, the input line that the Wolfram Alpha shows is this is a rational expression and rational function. We get to see a nice looking graph, another nice looking graph, but by far my favorite aspect of this is it shows the long division. And what I really like about that is I personally have tried to typeset long division. And it's really hard to do. And if I really wanted to show my students some long division of polynomials, I probably would just ask it for Wolfram Alpha and then copy and paste what they provide. Another one of the links I want to show you, but I don't want to spend any time really here, is there are some various places that have articles about Wolfram Alpha. One of them is in this online journal LOCI, which is a journal of the Mathematical Association of America. And I'll follow one link just to show you why I don't want to do a whole lot of links. Let's see. The formatting on this webpage I dislike, but anyway, within this article there are examples of how even elementary school students might be asking questions of Wolfram Alpha. And if you actually tried one of these links, it gives answers, but in this funny little window, and various information that might be amusing to various folks. Among the reasonable things you may or may not already have noticed about Wolfram Alpha, if you try reasonable sorts of words, I tried exponential fit and gave a bunch of numbers. Wolfram Alpha does interpret that I want it to curve fit bunch of data, and you might think you need two variables. Well, that's assuming that I wanted the first number to be with x value 0 and the second number with x value 1 and so on. So you get the plot that's shown here. Oops, sorry, didn't want to repeat. If you're interested in the number of calories you burn at various sorts of exercises, I don't know why I thought unicycling was such a bizarre exercise, but put in something unicycling, jogging, walking, trampolining, and it'll give you this sort of information. The programmers do a reasonable job of figuring out what words could possibly mean when in their query box. If you put in this query, turkeys in Turkey, it does figure out you're talking about the poultry inside of the country. And I have no idea why there was a peak in the amount of turkeys in Turkey in the 1990s. Oh, I just now noticed Mark asked about linear regression, and yes, of course it does linear regression. You can use a different word. Let's see, should I just back up to that one? Nah. I suppose what you'd really want to do is linear regression on sets of points, so then I guess you put in ordered pairs inside of parentheses. And again, just on various things people do with Wolfram Alpha besides mathematics. If you ask for temperatures and give it the names of a couple of cities, Wolfram Alpha will give you the temperatures in the two cities from the last week basically up until the moment, and then give you a forecast of what the temperatures are going to do over the next 3 days. So of course this is something I do whenever I'm going to travel to some other place, so I can compare the temperatures of where I am and where I'm going. One of the things I learned about actually fairly recently are these widgets. I just copied a whole lot of widgets into a web page, but well, so for instance, actually I could have used any old number. Let's see if 23 is an interesting number. So you put in any number in this little widget, tell it submit, and it gives various information about the number. Do you have a favorite number? So I'll try this suggestion of, all right, yeah, that's a good one. I have no idea why Tom likes 19, but let's see what 19 gives us. All right, playing with that one long enough. I'm not a musician, but anyway, if you want to play with guitar chords, there's an app. I suppose this one's actually useful. So of course you can change from things like tablespoons or pints or quarts or liters into same sorts of things if you are using some bizarre cookbook. And someone created a little widget just for, well, let's see. You get to put a start and end date, and for whatever reason, this was July 1st to July 3rd, 2010. And the place was just right here. So Wolfram Alpha does actually pay attention to, I guess, where your internet server is, and it can give you information from essentially where you're sitting. All right, and let's see. Maria, I think I need you to put up the next interaction.
Is that the right one, Bruce? I didn't have them numbered,
yes.
so. Okay.
Oh, yeah, this is the right one. So please answer true or false. And I can't tell if people are answering this one on the previous. Oh, I can see something at this moment. All right. And if you look at our little chat box, Jeremy has this nice comment that here gives different locations, and that means that yes, you can be asking the same thing, but well, if you're talking about the temperatures where you are, that'll be different. And also what's amusing is that if you just ask something about, oh, Fairville, the name of some town, Wolfram Alpha will look where you are and find the nearest Fairview and assume that you're talking about that one. It does actually give different answers for based on location if there's some reason why the location makes a difference in the correct answer. Oh, Paul asked about where are the widgets. Let's see, where can I go back to find a Wolfram Alpha page?
Actually, Mark
Oh, I
answered
know.
Paul's question, I think.
Okay. Well, let's see. The reactions that I've gotten most often when I've talked to someone who'd never heard about Wolfram Alpha before were these two. And, well, I don't know. I have a lot of fun talking about different ways students cheat. But anyway, they're already cheating. That the introduction of Wolfram Alpha doesn't change anything. But anyway, what I was putting on this little link was just the fact that in the Wolfram Alpha store, they have nice little applets for doing all sorts of nifty things for algebra, calculus, multivariable calculus. And yeah, it's sitting up there. A whole lot of your students are doing these things. Sorry. And the other attitude I have is, yeah, I can see that my students are going to use it, but I'm not going to have to change anything. And that's the more serious issue. I think the fact that it exists and it's available to everyone that has web access, which means everybody, I think it should change what we ask our students to do. And the analogy that I got back when people first started talking about computer algebra systems was, do you really need to know how to build an engine in order to drive a car? There are all sorts of pen and paper algorithms we've asked students to do, and we hope we're doing it because it's to test their ability to demonstrate their mastery of a concept. But a lot of it was just because it's a lot easier to grade a single number than it is some of the other things that we now have to look at. So Wolfram Alpha was launched in May of 2009. And this is a graph that shows the number of hits of Wolfram Alpha over time. You can tell the day that it opened, nice big peak. And I'm astonished at how slow it's been growing. So in case you can't read it, this is a graph that's in thousands, and the Wolfram Alpha is sitting basically at 500,000 for all the time since the day it opened. It is gradually growing. It now has been above 500,000 for most of this year. And yeah, I really expected some amazing exponential growth. And well, maybe after today you'll all have all your friends use it and it'll start shooting up. Oh, in terms of, in contrast too, so this is sitting somewhere around 500,000. Let's try the biggie. This graph is in millions. And Google's been growing quite steadily for all this time. Well, I didn't spend much time at all looking at various math things because I saw many of you had already been using Wolfram Alpha. I'm not sure what sort of clever things you've been doing, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what some other folks are doing. I think most of you probably actually know Fred. And he has a bunch of activities that he wrote specifically for his intermediate algebra students to do with Wolfram Alpha. Add, let's see.
Bruce, can you paste that link in the chat window so people can follow it if they want?
Let's see. That's actually taking me a little bit of time, but all right. And so what Fred has done is given a bunch of short queries for his students to play with so that they'll be comfortable with Wolfram Alpha but not change the content of his course. So for instance, his very first one, type x squared equals 9 into the Wolfram Alpha search engine, use the results to answer the following questions. And, oh, what does the graph of the blue line represent? All right, maybe I should actually try that. So when you type x squared equals 9 into the query box, you do get a nice little parabola in blue. You get this nice little horizontal line, and I don't know what you call that color. And the intersection points are marked with these little red dots. Whoops. So that's the reference to what are the blue lines, red line, and the red dots. And Fred has them then continue by solving the equation in pencil and paper. If you, let's see, back this one up. So I had a link on that previous page that led to this thing inscribed. And I've forgotten how many activities Fred has written. It's hundreds of activities, something on the order of dozens of these separate little documents. Oh, I see a question about color blindness. I don't know how to, well, let's see. Wolfram Alpha has defaults of how it displays things. So if you put in precisely Fred's commands, then you get things with default colors. You can play with Wolfram Alpha, especially if you know something about AMATYC commands, to influence how things are displayed. But I've never experimented much with it. I know you can play with colors. I don't know if you can change things in terms of thickness or making things dashed lines instead of solid lines. And it's Fred Felden. Oh yeah, I can see that's in there. I can't imagine that you could be in this webinar and not know who Maria is since she's hosting it. But anyway, she's had at least 2 blogs in which she talked a lot about Wolfram Alpha. And on one of them, she's contrasting some of the things she might have done before Wolfram Alpha existed with things that she's more likely to be doing now in a calculus class now that it does exist. And in particular, well, Wolfram Alpha will, if the student simply put in an expression that corresponded to that function f of x, then it would automatically draw the graphs of everything. The students can get used to the idea that, yeah, there's a whole lot of inputs. The problem is now, what do I do with all of this information? And another one of her posts, I liked her title, is What We're Doing with Wolfram Alpha, because she's discussing not just what she does, but what her students are doing using Wolfram Alpha. And so you want to come back to this blog to read things more carefully, but this little line about discussion boards, Wolfram Alpha plus Jing, nice things that not just the instructor does, but the students do in terms of using its power and a few other web tools or electronic tools. Actually, I don't know George. I mean, I guess I've said hello to him when he was talking to someone else, and I've noticed him tweeting various things. But I found that he had this interesting little thing here, that it's not that he's having his students play around with Wolfram Alpha, but the fact that he's aware that it exists, he changed what he did in the classroom so that again, working with rational expressions, instead of just having students work through something in an old previous sort of mode, he put up the instruction simplify something, and assuming the students might know about something like Wolfram Alpha, he didn't bother making them cheat on it. He gave them immediately the answer. The notion that our students are going to use it for cheating, well, you can take away that possibility by giving them the information they could get out of Wolfram Alpha anyway, but ask them something different about or require more of them than simply a final answer. All right, so there is not a manual for it. So some of the places you can look online to get more information on how to do what you want to do there is a Wolfram Alpha blog. Oh, and I can't see very much of it at a time inside this window. But it does include anyway a little search. That I found less useful than the Wolfram Alpha community forum. You can see the URL, but also again, I have all of these links online, and we'll look at them again, how to find that. But in this community, I found it more useful for finding stuff, because within the community, people are always asking, how do you get it to do such and such? And someone else will respond. So if you wanted to know something about piecewise functions, well, I didn't do the best possible search in there, I suppose. But there'll be someone who will have asked a question, probably similar to what you might have in mind, and various other folks that have answered it for you. And interestingly enough, you can get lots of information about how to do something in Wolfram Alpha by just doing an ordinary Google search. So within Wolfram Alpha, it doesn't have a nice little help box. But if you just do a Google search, you can often find someone that's asked the same question as you and found someone else that has come up with the answer. So here, let's try this. Use the chat window to suggest some query that you either want us to try right now or that you know is wonderful and you want us to share.
So you're going to have to go out to a web browser to do this. And remember that if you have trouble finding your way back, you can always go back to the original link. So everybody go try something.
So Paul has mentioned how he uses it to solve differential equations. And Maria's posted a few things inside the chat box. I'm not seeing too much else in there. I was planning to try to share some of the inputs as I see them. So I mean, I can continue checking out to see what Maria has there. Oh my.
I'll just chime in here for a second, Bruce, that this was a great activity in like a college algebra class or a calculus class when you get to exponential growth. We guessed at which cities in Michigan we thought had like exponential declines or exponential growth, and then we looked them up to see. And the students who had computers were all looking at cities they thought would have, you know, certain examples of growth or who's had linear growth, or and they loved going to see the actual data. So I thought it was a great way to use it for that.
And let's see, I don't know. Joe's asked about confidence intervals and hypothesis testing. I don't personally know a query for that. But that's all right. It's going to require you to input an awful lot of information before you can get a query. If you want confidence interval, you have to have a bunch of data to start with. And it's a big important thing to know that Wolfram Alpha is really not an online version of Mathematica. It can recognize some Mathematica commands, but not others. It has essentially zero capability of programming. So in Mathematica, you could write programs, or more simply, you could just take advantage of your last output as your next input. That's not something that you could do within Wolfram Alpha. It has lots of cool things that it does, but it it's still only a subset of Mathematica, and I think it might actually be a subset now. I think Mathematica now allows this sort of loose sort of input that you can put in words and Mathematica can recognize them. One of the cool inputs, just probability of full house, it does know you're talking about a poker hand. And does nice little derivations based on knowing everything you want to know about poker. All right, I think I should be getting closer to wrapping up. So Maria, there's a final interaction. All right, so oh, well, let's see. So nobody believed the first statement, and I'm happy that they didn't. Of course, you can, if you have a smartphone, you can use Wolfram Alpha on your smartphone, assuming you actually have web access at the moment. And yeah, one of the nice things about Wolfram Alpha is you can copy and paste its graphs into a Word document or essentially anything that'll accept pasting in pictures. And the last statement, this is what I had in mind, so I'm just going to go to any old web page and do a web search on my name. Oh, wow. I haven't done this for a while. Usually the last time I've done it anyway, the top hit was my home page. So if you did a Google search and you found my home page, I have a little section a little bit down about things for faculty. And the link I have for faculty is about handouts. And at the moment, the top link for conference materials happens to be a version of what we were just talking about. So the only thing is that there's a little bit of words sitting on to the side to help you navigate. But if you wanted to find a particular resource that I talked about in one of the slides, then you could find it from this spot. And that's pretty much the presentation. I'm trying to leave some time for question and answers. And I guess you could do that through the chat window.
So you guys had lots of questions when we were kind of finishing up there. So if you still have a question, I think somebody asked about LaTeX and whether that works with Wolfram Alpha, and I don't think Bruce got to that. But I'm also going to put up the link to the evaluation for this webinar, and I'm going to type it into the chat window so that everybody can go see it. But in the meantime, if you have more questions, please put them in the chat window. Bruce will take a stab at what he can answer. Sometimes the only way to answer some of these questions is to Google them. And hopefully that web link will work okay.
Robin, if you're specifically asking about apps for iPhone users, well, first of all, if you just use your iPhone and have it go to wolframalpha.com, then you can enter as normal with your iPhone queries into that box without any special application whatsoever. But on the Wolfram Alpha site, there's at the bottom of the page there should be some link for extra, I don't know, products, Wolfram Alpha products, and there would be an iPhone app that's probably about $2, which makes it easier to do the inputs. Let's see, Thomas Burke. Oh, and Lola's, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, Fred Felden stuff was all for intermediate algebra, which I lump into developmental math. Oh, and Robin Anderson wants iPhone data. And let's see, before what you said was dimensions of the phone. You might try modifying your query to say iPhone sales, if that is something that might be. I haven't tried it, but I don't know the exact correct query that'll get you the numbers you want. And this is a discussion question. Would the combination of Wolfram Alpha and smartphone render TI outdated? I do think that the biggest attraction now for the graphing calculators is just that a lot of instructors are used to them. as opposed to them having big deal advantages over other handheld technologies. Yeah, the key things about what if someone had said that they were using Wolfram Alpha for on their exams, the thing that's interesting is if the students have access to Wolfram Alpha, presumably they have access to the web, so they could just ask their friends in another state to have help on the exams. I'm not sure you handle accessing only Wolfram Alpha and not other things on the web.
I'm going to chime in here just for a sec because I suspect I know how this one's going to go down. If you think about the way we have the laptops today, every computer, every laptop has a USB drive, right? And if you think about how the technology like the TI Navigator works, you plug all of the computers into a technology which then monitors what those calculators are doing. And so I think it's probably a matter of a year to 2 years before all of the cell phones will have a common port, just like a USB drive on them. And then a instructor could have a classroom set of 30 monitoring devices, for example, that all plug into that common port. And then from your computer screen, you could monitor what's happening on all the cell phones that have a monitoring device on them. At which point we could allow students to use their cell phones on exams because we would be able to monitor what it is they're actually accessing on those phones. Same thing with computers. If we had a room full of students with laptops and we had a USB device that worked wirelessly, just like the TI Navigators do, we would be able to monitor what's on the screens of all of those computers. And for those of us who have computer labs, where you can already do that in a hardwired computer lab. So the trick is getting it into a wireless environment. And Annie's right. They'll figure out how to bypass systems, but they already do, don't they? I mean, they write cheating on their baseball caps and on the inside labels of their drinks and things like that. You're never going to get around it 100%, but it'll be too hard for most of them to figure it out. All right. Well, since we don't seem to be getting a lot more questions, I'm going to say we should probably wrap this one up. And again, I'll remind you that we've got the evaluation link. It just takes like 2 minutes to do, and we really do appreciate your feedback. We always ask you for ideas for what you'd like to see in the future at our webinars so we can pass those along to the committees. And I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and I should give Bruce a little hand here. I think we should all give Bruce a little hand for presenting today. Thanks very much, Bruce.
Well, thanks, and have fun.